from the interior portion that is to the northeast to the surrounding lighter mare that's 270 degrees to the west. That 90 is very distinct and interior. You got some great descriptions from the two at the window about the colors in there, but in that darker part, in that wedge, you've got some really interesting color, even though the rays, the distinct difference in the albedo almost look like rays, but it's not the rays coming out. It's the just change in that albedo.
Integrity Science, that is very intriguing, those color rays coming out of ohm rather than sort of albedo. And as answer to your question, we do not think you can see Schrodinger. It's in darkness as of now. But thanks for that ohm description, and it sounds like the pair at the window's got great descriptions that we're definitely going to dive into tonight.
Okay. If you could help me, I would still love to know what it is. There's a very nice crater. You're going to likely have a lot of pictures of it. What would be right in the terminator at the South Pole or close to the South Pole, where it's intersecting the terminator right now?
Yeah, Victor, we're assuming you're talking about, kind of if you're looking at the terminator, it's basically like 70% down from the North Pole. Is that where you're looking?
Contact, yes, that is where I'm looking.
Integrity Houston, that is an enabled caution for wastewater dump required. We have hit our limit. As expected, no crew action.
Copy, no crew action.
You are.
And Integrity Science, we're trying to figure out what you're looking at there. Is it like right on the terminator, or is it in the eliminated portion next to the terminator?
While we wait for a response from the crew, the terminator is that difference between day and night, or brightness and darkness, that you see on the moon. We see this from the International Space Station as well, looking down at Earth.
And Science from Integrity, excuse my space orientation adaptation. If you draw a line between Glushko through the center of Oriental, and then another line from Glushko through the southern tangent of Oriental, that line would almost perfectly intersect tangentially the crater that I'm talking about, and it is on the terminator. So yeah, I think I'm not looking at the South Pole. I was a little twisted.
That line description was really helpful. I have eyes on the SIR right now, and they are actively discussing lunar geography. We will be back with you shortly.
You're hearing a couple voices today in Mission Control Houston. One of those is Dr. Kelsey Young.
Integrity Science, we believe that's Zeeman Crater.
Oh, I floated away from the speaker. Say it again, please.
We believe that that is Zeeman Crater.
Zeeman. Okay, and can you say the first letter? I may be pronouncing that wrong. What's the first letter of that word?
Zulu. It's Z-E-E-M-A-N.
This Again, when you hear calls down to science or from science, that's Dr. Kelsey Young, the Artemis Science Flight Operations Lead here at a console in Mission Control. You also hear communications with the crew from Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jenny Gibbons. She is the Capcom for today. She is a backup Artemis 2 crew member.
This is gonna knock a few people down.
Those calls from pilot Victor Glover asking about a feature he was seeing, specifically a crater on the moon.
Saying that we've never been to the moon, we can't get there.
Meanwhile, the team here in the science evaluation room was actively working together to determine what feature he was describing.
I guess there's quite a few people that are going to get upset.
The teams at the window have continued to move through their targets, including Aristarchus Plateau, Reiner Gamma, and we are preparing for the cabin and window teams to swap. That's when we'll hear more from Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen when they take on these support roles, while Christina Cook and Victor Glover are at the windows photographing and annotating.
Yeah, it's just a theory of, that I had a long time ago. There's a lot of people have wondered where the moon came from. As we briefly mentioned,
if you look towards the right side of the moon, essentially,
there's a lot of chatter on here. I wasn't expecting so much, actually. Yeah, there's a theory that there was a planet that exploded between Mars and Jupiter, where you have the asteroid belt that we passed through. My belief was that our moon is actually
this live view coming from a camera outside the Orion spacecraft, and if you look on the right side of the moon where you see those dark patches,
came into our atmosphere and globules and stuck together and became our moon.
Time to just sit here and describe what I'm seeing, but the Terminator right now is just fantastic. It is the most rugged that I've seen it. From a lighting perspective, there are little islands. There are islands of terrain out there that are completely surrounded by darkness, which indicates some real variation in terrain. Up to the north, there is a very nice double crater. It looks like a snowman sitting there, in the 5-10 degrees below the pole in the Terminator. And then on the southern edge, there's almost like a hole. Looks like a hole, and it's the diameter of Vavilov size, just blackness, and then a wall of bright. And then it goes back to the black beyond the Terminator. So there's it looks like there's just a gigantic hole right there. 1 Vavilov diameter east of the Terminator. And as you go south, the Terminator is not a nice smooth arc. It's just jagged. There's almost a 110-degree turn in the shadow as opposed to the nice smooth arc, again indicating some really interesting variations. And I'm sure we'll get some photos of that. And then one of the craters further to the south of Vavilov, maybe halfway down to the South Pole, is not only looks like just a deep hole, and then there's like 2 island rays pointing off to the west and north that indicate very high ridges and very deep canyons coming up out of that crater. So again, just some really interesting visual illusions going on with the shadows there. Like I said, there look to be islands out beyond the Terminator, because some of the things, maybe even a Vavilov diameter into the Terminator are catching sunlight on the peaks up to the north and to the south. It's very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, now that doesn't surprise me, because my theory
Integrity Science, oh my gosh, that was an amazing picture you just painted. I glanced over at the SIR video and I literally saw fist pumps in the air. Those types of observations are things that humans are uniquely able to contribute, and you just really brought us along with you, so thanks for that.
That it would have, like, if you got a load of plasticine, Play-Doh, whatever country you come from, I don't know what you call it, if you slap them together and roll it into a ball, you have big crevices and gaps inside. That's what I predicted would be there.
Kelsey. Did you get a SITREP updating
and the
you
reason
on
I
a
came
flight
up with
change
the
and
idea of it
logistics
being
for
a core
PCBs?
is because there's reports of it ringing like a bell when it was struck by a satellite, and I believe they also had that effect when they hit it.
We slightly
the
changed the
surface
PCD plan for the
before
window
that, so they
observers.
tested
The
it
two
with
window observers kept
by
their
crashing a
PCD.
satellite into it.
So in other words, the one that window 2 went to window 3, and the one at window 3 went to
And
window 2.
there's also civilizations on the
rather
Earth
than
that
staying at the window. We'll
have
plan
in
on
previous
all
times
observers
believed
keeping the
that
same PCD
they remember
for all
the arrival of the
observations.
moon, and they remember the time before the moon that they spoke about this through
Copy,
stories.
Christina, that makes sense to us, and good plan.
And my belief
we are
is
coming
that
up here on a cabin and
the
window
moon was
team
there,
swap.
but
Let
it
me know
was
when you're ready for a quick vehicle
literally
status.
black, because it didn't have all the dust from asteroid impacts and stuff. So when it cooled down, it turned black, and nobody saw it for like probably thousands of years. And then when the Earth and the moon got struck by those two meteorites that caused all the problems, all that dust covered over the moon and other impacts as well from smaller ones over time, and that caused this sort of silvery effect that we see on it now, which I've read reports that it's actually not that deep. You get to a certain depth and you can't dig anymore, and it's the same all across the surface that they've currently landed on. So it's ringing like a bell. It's belief it's possibly got a lot of metal
As you
on
heard,
there.
science.
Go for the vehicle system update.
And the fact that it faces the Earth all
Howdy,
the
Reed, we
time.
don't have much for
I know
you. We
there's
just
other
wanted to let you
theories,
know the
but
toilet right now
if it was
is no-go for use
formed
as
while
we
it was
stick with
in-
the predetermined limit.
I wish I
For
could
now,
mute this.
all crew members,
mute this chat a little bit.
please use CCUs. Otherwise, Orion is looking very good. And you have 15 minutes in this handover time where we expect Victor and Christina to switch to the windows and you and Jeremy to be in the cabin assisting. Let us know if you have any questions.
So yeah, that's my theory. Anyway, there is a video. I did a short video of it. I apologise for it being AI of me,
No questions
but
at all. They're in the swap right now.
I
The
was
first
quite
thing
ill at the
I'll
time,
put
so
up
I
the dock
didn't
hatch
actually
window,
want to do one of
and
me.
just
But I plan to in the future, but it won't let me go live, which is really annoying. I didn't know you had to have so many subscribers, like 50, I think.
what
So
I'm going to call the bar
I have a target of
just
50,
looks so
so
different out the docking hatch right now. It's quite a
but
bit
I want to do
darker.
news
It's,
channels,
same
news
darkness, if not a little
and
darker than
journalism about
Grimaldi.
different subjects.
But it's cool after just being in
But
the 400 mil for the
tending
last
towards
half hour. Looking up close,
alternative
I got pictures
sort
of
of
everything. I was
stories in
just driving on
general.
the Terminator.
Maybe
It
the
really is
current one, but
fascinating Terminator.
generally alternative stories that
It looks so dynamic
gives everyone
right now.
a break
It's
from
very
the current
three-dimensional on the docking
politics
hatch
and
compared to
stuff
what I
that
was
goes
just
on
looking
in
at
the world.
400 mil.
Interestingly,
We are
I
getting
think
a
it was
sneak preview
China.
from one of our saw
they're actually
cameras of what you're
sending
looking
a
at, and we see some of what you're describing. We cannot wait to see your
search
photos.
vessel
Thanks.
up into space. They're going to actually look for pieces of core. So it makes you wonder why they think there's planet core floating around in space. So
Some longer lenses on the
and
solar
I think
array, so you
that
can
was
see the
about
whole moon. But
8 years after I came up with my theory. I'm not saying it's right. I totally understand if you all laugh and think,
All
oh
right,
yeah,
MPO and Inco,
that's just
take
a
notes. We want to
ridiculous
zoom lens
idea.
on those saws next time. Thanks, Reed.
But yeah, I think that maybe that's why the moon's faces us on one side all the time, because it was actually formed in our atmosphere, so it wasn't actually spinning in the first place. It's just my idea. I don't know. I've
As the
never
crew
heard of
gets
anyone
ready
else
to
having
switch
that theory.
positions
If they
from the
have,
window
then
crew
I'm
going back to the support crew, and the support crew
independently
flying up to the
declaring it was
windows.
mine at the time
This
that I
view
came up with
inside the
idea,
room,
but
Capcom
if
Jenny
someone
Gibbons
else has had
speaking
that
with the
idea,
crew,
let me
Canadian
know in
Space
the
Agency
comments. Tell me
astronaut.
if you've heard this idea before.
The crew has continued to
Not about
provide
the planet
excellent
exploding. I know
descriptions
that's
of
a
what they are
very
seeing
old,
on the lunar surface. In this picture,
belief.
or in this live view
But
actually,
I
from
believe that's where the
Orion and
moon
a
came
camera
from.
mounted on its solar array wing, if you look at the dark portion on the right side of the screen, those
think
are
this is
visible
so
from
cool.
Earth. That's considered the near side. Those are ancient lava flows from a time early in the moon's history when it was volcanically active.
In my
If you
idea
look towards
later.
the left,
See,
there's
this is
that
the other
dark,
thing.
large crater that appears
to me,
above,
that also
to the
supports
left of
my
those lava
theory
flows.
that
That's
this
Oriental Basin. It's
is,
about 600 miles
probably,
wide, and it straddles the moon's near and far side. And this
lot
mission is
of
the first time that
an
humans
Earth-
have ever been able
sorry,
to
not an
see
Earth
this
core.
with their
We're
eyes in
still
the
here.
daylight.
Of a planet core. I think the planet was called Marduk or photo.
Again, you hear
Marduk.
Conversation about that Terminator. You have a great view of that as well. That's the difference between light and darkness on the moon. Victor Glover explaining that as a very jagged-looking Terminator due to the peaks that they're seeing and the craters that they're seeing as they prepare to cross over the far side.
Solidified on now, then these lava flows covered over it, or just maybe just melted the
you also
dust
heard
on
science
the
officer, the Dr. Kelsey Young, Artemis Science Flight Operations lead, sharing with Victor Glover that his responses are truly something that only human eyes can discern or provide. So we've previously discussed how having humans observing the moon on this mission is being combined with lunar robotic data to help us maximize what we know about the moon. So part of that data comes from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO. This orbiter provides the robotic foundation that makes Artemis 2 lunar science possible. LRO has been orbiting the moon for 17 years, which makes it the longest operated lunar orbiter in history. It's also the only American spacecraft dedicated specifically to lunar science and exploration.
See that we're doing this now.
Artemis 2 lunar observations are designed to complement data like the detailed surface images from LRO. So while LRO provides those detailed high-resolution maps of the moon's surface, the Artemis 2 crew adds human observations that focus on regional context and relationships between features, giving scientists a larger geologic picture. Now, this combination of robotic and human observations strengthens lunar science. LRO delivers precise and repeatable measurements over long periods of time, while the Artemis 2 crew contributes real-time visual descriptions and context that robotic instruments alone cannot provide.
Okay, so I'm going to stop.
The best description I've heard while preparing for this mission is to compare the difference in looking at the moon with your own eyes on Earth and trying to take a picture with a camera. The camera truly never does it justice, and it's much easier to describe and perceive what you're seeing with your own eyes than to take a photo.
50 subscribers. These
Artemis 2 astronauts can rapidly scan wide areas and adjust their focus in real time, as well as describe relationships between features. The crew will also observe the same regions multiple times under changing lighting conditions during the flyby and provide perspectives that would take robotic missions years to accumulate. During the Artemis 2 mission, LRO is also attempting to observe some of the same lunar features that the astronauts are studying. Collecting this data simultaneously highlights how different instruments and human eyes provide complementary information about the moon. This LRO data plays a direct role in preparing for future Artemis missions. Its measurements of topography, surface temperature, composition, radiation, and lighting conditions are used to assess hazards, identify safe landing sites, and locate potential resources such as water ice near the lunar South Pole.
Oh man, we need to land on the moon.
This mission, Artemis 2, represents the point where years of robotic preparation are paired with human exploration for the first time in the Artemis era. So together, LRO, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and Artemis 2 are demonstrating how NASA moves from mapping the moon robotically to exploring it with humans. We are laying the groundwork for future Artemis missions
from another angle to see what it is.
Operations.
And also that monolith. But at this distance,
with Orion, we are now 4 days, 21 minutes, 4 days, 21 hours, and 22 minutes into the flight of Artemis 2, our crew aboard the Orion spacecraft. We are now 8,153 miles away from the moon, 250,742 miles away from Earth. The spacecraft is traveling at 1,030 miles per hour.
I'd love to be on that craft, wouldn't you?